On this episode of AV Week, holy cow, a number of partnerships within the industry. Logitech, Crestron, Bose, and Sennheiser, what that means for the industry. Also taking a look at AVIXA, the Diversity Council, and what it means for the future of AV. All that and more. Next on AV Week.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
This is AV Week, episode 444, recorded Friday, February 21st, 2020. A splash of color.
Support for AVNation is brought to you by
Vadio, makers of the new NDI professional broadcast camera, the RoboShot 30E NDI.
And by Christie Digital. And by
Draper, focused on innovative solutions.
This is AV Week, your weekly wrap-up of audio-visual news and information. My name is Tim Albright. I am your host. With us to discuss the news and information we have gathered this week, Miss Dawn Mead. Welcome, ma'am.
Thanks, Tim. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, always. Also with us are two gentlemen that sort of kind of went with me to ISE. They didn't go with me, but we were all three there. First and foremost, Mr. Steve Greenblatt from Control Concepts. Welcome, sir.
Glad to be here.
And a young man that I met for the first time in D.C. At a future event, Mr. Christopher Hope from Loop Lab. Welcome, sir.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Great stuff. We're actually going to talk about one of the events that Chris was a part of at ISE last week. First story, though, here we go. Two actually different stories. One's from our website. One's from our friends over at AV Network and SCN. Two different partnerships. One is Crestron and Logitech, and actually Crestron, the Logitech story that AV Network and SCN has. They had a great conversation with Randy Klein of Crestron and Scott Wharton from Logitech. Those two companies are getting together. And actually, around the huddle space, Crestron is making a big push, both with their partnerships with teams, as well as the soft codecs. They're leveraging some of the technology and some of the hardware that Logitech has. On the other side of that, you've got Bose and Sennheiser getting together, which is a story from our website, which is also interesting. Again, surrounding the huddle space. One of the things, though, that in talking with the folks at both Sennheiser and Bose, you have two audio companies here. And Dawn, I'm going to start with you on this, as Dawn is our end user for this, but Dawn has also worked for integrators and done a bunch of other stuff in the industry. You've got folks who would ostensibly, if you step back and you look on paper, these are competitors, right? These are flat out competitors. You can go down to Best Buy and you can pick up a pair of Sennheiser headphones and you can pick up a pair of Bose headphones. Just for full disclosure, I've got both sitting on my desk right now, right? Through that wall in my desk, I've got both sitting there. I am not going to make a determination on which ones I think are better. The Bose are newer, so I guess those are better to me right now. But in general, you've got competitors here, right? Logitech and Crestron, we can make the argument that not really, but sort of, right? But Bose and freaking Sennheiser, that also. So Dawn, as an end user now, what do partnerships like this mean? Does it help when you guys are looking at, or does it kind of muddy the waters and go, wait, we've got a whole lot of players here that normally don't play well together?
Well, it's interesting because I kind of have two minds of this, mainly because I came from an integration background. On the one hand, as an end user, when I'm specifying for the enterprise and I'm dealing with folks that may be ordering and having their facilities groups at that location do the work rather than bringing the AV team from Baltimore, we run into, we want to make things easy. We want to make things seamless. The whole ecosystem discussion we had when everybody was buying everybody over the past couple of years, you get this one ecosystem, you make it all very plug and play and everyone plays nice together if it's not the same company, and it just works. And end users love that. On the other hand, the skeptical part of me that was always an integrator was like, well, I love a good ecosystem. I love making it easy for my end users. But if we're integrating things into a single product, one little feature breaks, you have to replace the whole thing. It's what we saw with some of these monitors that had the built-in computers back way back to the Ampro Alice projector days, the big giant projector with the built-in computer. Computer went down. That projector was a 400-pound, paperweight. There was no still using the projector without the onboard computer part. So I think if they start integrating the products into making these one product to rule them all, single piece items, that's problematic. And also having been an end user, I have my favorite brands, you have your favorite brands, my company has its favorite brands. What if our favorite control company partners with a camera company we don't like? I'm not saying we don't like Logitech. I'm not saying we do like Crestron. I'm not saying we don't. But, if these partnerships pair a product that you're not in love with a product that is your bread and butter, then it can be problematic because they're going to want to protect their yard, they're going to want to protect their property and make it a little harder. I mean, not that they would, but make it a little harder to use with the other guy's product, even if a particular end user thinks it's the best. So I'm of two minds of this. It could be very good for the industry, but there are some things to watch out for.
All right. Chris, can these companies get along? That is one question that kind of kept popping up, not just last week, but when we've had other stories like this, specifically the ones that where you have, I'm going to call it direct competitors, right? Is it possible for these folks to kind of put different sides and different verticals for them, right? So different business groups in their own little silos and say, never these two will touch. Over here, though, we're going to do business and we're going to make some difference and make some money. Can that happen in the real world?
Listen, the reality of it is that the AV industry is a multi-billion-dollar industry. And at the end of the day, people are already integrating these products. They're already using these products in unison. And so being able to just create them and package them already integrated for many people that are using some of these brands separately is really an awesome opportunity. So I think it's really smart for some of these companies that have products that definitely are compatible and are used together often by different companies, especially for these huddle room spaces, to really be able to leverage that aspect of the market. Now, I think that this is capturing more and more of what's becoming a niche as we're seeing more of this happen between companies and corporations. And I expect that in the next 5 years, we're going to see this grow. I think that we're going to see this in other areas outside of just huddle rooms, talking about flex spaces, but going into conference spaces and more. And so I think there's exciting possibility there. I definitely do share Don's kind of conservative perspective. I do think that there is something about the need to customize the end user's needs and understanding that there could be some challenges there. However, I mean, to have the option, I don't think, it's a bad thing to have the option on the table for the end user.
All right, very good. Mr. Greenblatt, isn't this what we do in the industry? Not to be coy, and Chris already kind of mentioned the fact that we do this, right? This is what the integration industry does. This is what audiovisual integrators do, is they make products work together. What happens when the manufacturers kind of cut us out of that and doing it on their own and making it easier for us?
So that's been just a lot of the talk of the industry in general, and in my world and control systems and the idea that we can now make something work with a number of mouse clicks rather than having to write a lot of code. That's a good example of this happening. When it comes down to it, we're here to serve the clients, right? And so we need to make sure that we want to offer them something that's going to serve their needs. And that's, as an industry, what we need to be focusing on, because that they're the ones that pay the bills. And so if that's where so I also think too that there's a larger demand for solutions. So these are going to be likely in rooms that are not rooms that we would have been outfitting with larger, more complex and integrated systems anyway. Yeah. So it could be a nice way to get a foot in the door to be able to look at managed services and look at trying to use this as a stepping stone into larger, more integrated systems as the client needs.
All right. One question though, Steve, as a follow-up to that. yes, we are here to serve the client, but as integrators, you can't do that if you're not in business. If you're not in
Right.
business, right? So I guess are we just having to? We're going to have to, as an industry, find different ways to monetize the things that we do.
For sure. And I think that's been a challenge that a lot of us have been facing for some time. We can't really rely on easy systems, let's call them, anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Following up on a last, not the last story for ISE, because ISE will probably play out for the next month or so. But Chris Hope was a part of an event. Was on Tuesday of ISE. June Sarpong from the BBC. Actually, she started out at MTV a number of years ago. She was a part of a panel on diversity for the Diversity Council as a part of ISE, the AVIXA Diversity Council. Chris, I'm going to start with you on this. As we kind of expand that, as AVIXA has expanded that council and what that council means, but also the events that council has, what does it mean to the industry, but also what does it mean to underrepresented people in the industry to have a diversity council?
Absolutely. First, I want to give a huge shout out to June, but also to the AVIXA Trade Association, and also to Lisa, who from Sure Incorporated, who served on the panel as well. The panel, for those who were not there, for the AVIXA Diversity panel at ISE 2020 was incredible. ISE 2020 was just a phenomenal experience. To answer your question, I will say that one of the things that is really imperative as the AV industry continues to grow, that we're thinking around worker pipelines and being smart and equitable about how we're approaching putting more and more people in positions. One of the things that I spoke about on the panel is people that are in these companies, for whatever reason, there's been kind of failures where, for example, here at the Loop Lab, where I'm the executive director and founder, we train young adults, mostly young adults of color and women, to get into the audio video industry. And so when they graduate, we send them into paid internships and they go into the field. One common issue that we're finding here in Massachusetts is that many of the integrators and some of the companies that we really are trying to partner with and to have internships and job employment spaces, they're requiring our folks to have cards. And so just that one requirement now, even though some of our folks are really incredible, they're highly talented, they're hard workers, they know their stuff, they're doing their due diligence, they just don't have access just because of that one requirement, which is something that's easily changeable if upper management at the company can just say, hey, is there really a reason why we need to make this a requirement? And if so, is there a way that we can work with entry-level employees to get them to a space where they can maybe have the company car, or be able to get them into a space where within the 6 months we can get them their own car? And so I think being intentional about how decisions are made in many of these companies really becomes paramount as we go more and more to some of these conferences, whether it's Infocom or ISE, and we're not seeing the kind of diversity that we see actually in our end user population and the demographics that we end up serving. And so I want to encourage the broader industry to think equitably rather, and understanding why that's important, why being value-based as an industry is important. And so to have partners, corporate partners in doing that work that have corporate responsibility becomes paramount. And you'll find that in doing that, companies will be more productive. You will have not only a diversity of gender and racial and ethnic backgrounds represented, you'll also have a diversity of ideas and innovation grow in certain areas. When you have these hermetically sealed environments, unfortunately, you end up finding some of the same ideas that are just being kind of spun over again and again and again. But sometimes when you add a little, no pun intended, a little color, you'll find that there's a broader palette that can be added to that. and then a spectrum of palettes that can be added. So I definitely, I think we're in the right direction. I think that the conversations are starting, and the VIXA Diversity Council is at the forefront of those conversations. Charmaine is doing an incredible job.
Yep.
Michael McLaughlin has been doing phenomenal work, and all of the men and women and others that are, really meeting regularly to talk about how we can strategize to bring equity, inclusion at the forefront of the industry. Because it's not the future, it's the now.
Yeah.
And the question is that our organizations and companies within affiliation of AVIXA going to understand the need and necessity on a values and principle based of it, or are they going to learn it the hard way, which is the bottom line perspective? Because, unfortunately, that could also hurt one's bottom line if they're not doing the right things on that end. Yeah. So, if anything, I can only be a vessel to bring more awareness and to contribute to the added value that is already happening with the AVIXA Diversity Council, which is continuing to create campaigns, panels, and other opportunities to bring more awareness, create more conversation and dialogue, and also scholarships. One of the things that's coming out of the AVIXA Diversity Council is the Mosaic Scholarship and the Elevate Scholarships, which are really geared towards bringing young women into the industry, but also people of color into the industry. Mosaic and Elevate Scholarship with women. And so those are phenomenal because, for any one of our students here at the Loop Lab, it's an opportunity for many of them that come from low-income backgrounds to say, wow, this is a career path that maybe before I had not considered. And what's beautiful about that is the low access barrier that comes with coming into the AV world. I'm sure everyone can attest that here on the panel and in the discussion that one of the beautiful things about a career in AV is that it's one of the last vestiges, and at least in America, of the middle class, a middle class job or a middle class profession, right? It's one of those jobs where you can graduate high school or get your GED and maybe not have a college degree, but you can come out and still earn. If you work hard and you do your due diligence and you're ready to bust your tail, you can make a honest, good living and work your way to the top. And unfortunately, there's not that many other kinds of trades like that out there. And so that makes this an incredible career path for many young adults, especially young adults that are coming from spaces where they're looking for economic elevation and mobility.
Yeah, absolutely. Steve, as somebody who is in a hiring position, talk for a second about, and I'm not asking you to hire Chris. He's in Boston. You're in New Jersey.
We can't get along on sports teams. So
there's that too. Chris and I can't get along on sport teams. Reigning Stanley Cup champion right here. So, well, not me personally, but the Blues. But talk for a second about that, right? Talk about getting more and more folks. Chris used the splash of color. It's not. I take it as a great pun. But talk about some of the things that as an employer and as a hiring person you can do in working with AVIXA Diversity and getting more and more diverse points of view and diverse folks into the industry.
So I could touch on a few of the things, and all the things that Chris said were amazing. And I'm fully behind them. The impact that can be made by the initiatives that we just discussed are really what the future of the industry is. We've been so hungry for talent and for young people and even for older people. I mean, we need good people that are committed to the industry and are passionate, because most of the people that do get in and last a year, let's say, they're probably in it for life. I mean, it's just such this industry has that type of stickiness to it, and there's incredible opportunities, and it was an amazing point about the idea that you really don't need a particular set of credentials to be able to be successful in this industry. I mean, I can talk, both about people on my team as well as people about colleagues and mentors that have less schooling than I have. I mean, it's and they've been very, very successful. The there's an amazing the opportunities are amazing, and one of the things about thinking differently that comes to mind to me, and I actually commented on the I've been involved a little bit in the council or events myself, and just the idea of thinking differently about how you can approach business, and if I really take that and extrapolate on it quite a bit, I don't think that that independent programmers would exist today if we didn't think differently.
Yeah.
Many years ago, and everybody has to break in somewhere, and we have to stop only doing things the way we've been doing them. I mean, there's that we have to be thinking more broadly. And and as far as being able to bring people in, I think that every source is a good one, and especially if we can bring people in that have been pre-qualified and have some training, and I think I've been involved a little bit with Lincoln Tech, which is a local technical school, and trying to it's so rewarding to be able to give back and to be able to tell people about your career and the successes that you've had and what they have the opportunity to do in the future.
Absolutely. Don?
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead, Chris.
I wanted to thank you so much for your comments, Steve. I did want to add that one of the things that really was remarkable was June, who did a wonderful job on the Vixar Diversity panel, by the way, moderating it. She asked me a question about some tangible things that people can do within the industry in order to promote inclusion and promote equity. One of the things that I really want to stress is representation. It's really important for people to be able to learn and to see themselves in the AV industry. I can't tell you how many times many of our young women here in our learning community are dejected when they go on YouTube trying to find YouTube tutorials on how to build a rack, right? How to do cabling. And it's, there's no disrespect, it's a 40, 50-year-old white man. And it's not someone who looks like them or talks like them or comes from a neighborhood like they come from. And that can be challenging for many of the different kinds of people. We should have videos with people with disabilities. We should have women. We should have people from the LGBTQ spectrum represented in some of this tutorial information that's online. Simple things like that organizations and as a broader AV community, I think we should be conscious of. And also as companies thinking about people that are in positions of leadership. And obviously there's something to be said about meritocracy and merit. However, once that, is expected and done, okay, let's talk about, what does it mean to have a person of color in a particular position in an AV company or a woman in a position in that. That's why I really appreciate Sure Incorporated, where they have C-level executive women that are really doing great work and they're very innovative. You see the innovations that are coming out of there. And not to say that no other AV related company is innovative, but you see the impact in real time because people are choosing inclusion, they're choosing equity, they're choosing equality.
Yeah, and Chris, the current CEO of Sure, she came up through the ranks of engineers, right?
Right.
And Dawn, Chris actually hit the next point I was going to hit, and that is representation.
I'm so glad you went there because I was going to go there whether you asked me about it or not.
Actually. So, and not for nothing, I've said this before in talking about diversity and talking about harassment. I am a middle-aged white guy, straight middle-aged white guy, right? I am that side of what whatever. I understand I understand that there are certain things that I don't know and I don't get and I will not experience. So both from Chris and Dawn will have you on this representation. And the one thing I've understood in talking with folks like Chris and you and Charmaine and other folks is seeing people that look like you
right
in positions, right? It is a huge thing. Explain for a second why that is and then go on.
So it comes down to relatability. You know, if you never see someone with your color skin or your gender or your orientation or anything like that in a particular position, it feels like maybe you're not welcome there. Doesn't mean that you're not welcome there, but you don't have that understanding of this is for me, I can go there. And I wanted to bring up another topic about that, and that's end users. You know, when we do projects, we're not just selling a product, we're not just integrating a product, we have to sell and integrate that product to an end user, to stakeholders. You know, that's the first thing they teach you. Who are your stakeholders? What do they look like? And while not just the AV industry, but all industries are still very male dominated, a lot of your C-level executives are going to be male. There are still women out there that are C-level, but more importantly, when you go and integrate an enterprise and put in hundreds of conference rooms, hundreds of meeting spaces, do you think that those probably white but definitely male guys that are the C-level purchasers are the ones running the rooms? They're the ones using the rooms. Who's running the rooms? It's your admin team. And unfortunately in America, even 2020, the admin team, at least where I work, of thousands of workers, predominantly women. And I know when our salespeople come in and they start talking to some of these women for training, they get it, but they don't get it because of, you know, communication styles, you know, assumption of knowledge that people may or may not have, not just from being in the industry and not, but, you know, there are gender differences there. I know for a fact that when we have our IT team and the AV staff, myself included, and you know, integrators in to do a training on a new facility, inevitably I'm the one leading a lot of the training with the women that are going to be running the rooms, that are going to be setting up the rooms, that are going to be the boots on the ground at that site in that room at that time. Because there's only a small IFT staff and a small AV staff, we're not going to be in every conference room for every meeting. So they'll look to me because they resemble me. You know, obviously I'm not a person of color, especially not this time of year. I'm a little paler than normal in the middle of winter. But, you know, in the Baltimore, D.C. area, we do have a splash of color, as Chris put it. You know, but even there, the splash of color is inevitably guys. So, you know, you need that representation both for the women and for the people of color. And it gives people the idea that we can ask you questions. For some reason, you're more approachable because I understand you. I have something in common with you. And that makes you my number one resource when I have an issue because I'm intimidated by this guy or that person for one reason or another. Yeah. So I think it's vitally important. And I agree with everything Chris and Steve said. Yay.
All right, there we go. That'll be a good place to end it there, guys. Thank you all so much for joining us. Ms. Dawn Mead, where can people find you if they are so inclined?
Well, I do work in the defense aerospace industry, so I'm not going to tell you where I work, and I'm not allowed to. But you can always find me here on AVNation.tv, hosting the AV Social Show, and cropping up periodically on AVWeek, like this week. You can also find me all over the socials at AVDawn or Dawn Mead.
All right, very good. Mr. Greenblatt, where can people find you or Control Concepts, sir?
Control Concepts is at controlconcepts.net, and I can be found on social at Steve Greenblatt. But as Dawn said, you can also find me at AVNation.tv with the Estate of Control podcast. So lots of good content, and that podcast is targeted toward the control automation and programming aspects of the industry. And I also do a little bit of work with the NSCA Foundation and Ignite, and which is also focused on bringing young people into the industry, and I'd love to talk to anybody who wants to know more about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, Steve and I saw each other earlier today, where he recorded his next episode of A State of Control, where he had our buddy Joe Way from USC, who just won our 2019 AVNation Professional of the Year, and Nick Miller, along with Uncle Richie, who's always hanging around with Steve. Mr. Hope, thank you, sir. I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much. You can find the Loop Lab at thelooplab.org. And we're on Instagram and Facebook. On Instagram, it is instagram.com/we are the Loop Lab, or the tag is at we are the Loop Lab. And also on Facebook, it is facebook.com/we are the Loop Lab. In addition to this work, just one of the things that we do in order to sustain ourselves as an organization, aside from grant writing, is we actually hire our alumni to do for-hire videography work. And so they do digital storytelling. So if you have a company that is looking for that 1-minute summary video of the products that you create and the impact that it has on the customer, or if you're looking for, if you're doing, you want to do a campaign series related to a particular issue or an initiative, our young adults are hired at $22.50 an hour to do that work on a professional level. And so if there is any interest in that, definitely would love to talk to folks out there. If there's interest for people to want to sponsor our young adults, all of our young adults, as I said, are 18 to 26 years old, looking to get into the AV industry. And obviously a big part of that is needing income during their time of getting professional development. And so sponsorship becomes huge, as well as sponsorship for their paid internships. And so I can be reached at chope@thelooplab.org.
All right, very good. And really quickly, just more to clarification, any in and around the Boston area or anywhere?
It could be anywhere. It could be anywhere.
Yeah, the reason I ask because that's where Chris is. So,
awesome.
All right, thank you all so much. For Tim Albright, don't follow me on the Twitters. I mentioned the blues. That's about what I'm talking about right now. Although somebody roped me into this whole 7 pictures in 7 days thingy, and I'm not freaking Justin Watson and Craig McCormick out for doing it. So that's what I'm also talking about on the Twitters. But more importantly, for the folks here at AVNation, go by the website if you would, please. AVNation.tv. That's AVNation.tv. You'll find programs like this and a host of others, including 2 of my fine panelists, their shows. Dawn Mead and Kelly Perkins does marketing and social media, AV Social. Steve does State of Control, along with our buddy Rich Figoza. Matt Scott, my counterpart, does residential once a week. I'm not sure when he does it anymore. He posts on Wednesday, so I'll put it that way. Also, while you're there, check out our underwriters section. These are the folks who help us financially, help us bring you AVWeek and Resi Week, the State of Control, and AV Social, and ISE 2020, which honestly felt like 100 years ago, but was just 7 days ago that we recorded this episode. Yeah.
So overwhelmed by the people. It's incredible.
Oh yeah, it was a whirlwind. If this will post on Monday. If you're in and around the Dallas area or headed to the BLC, come hang out with Mr. Steve Greenblatt and I. So we'll be down there. Also, both this spring and this fall, I will be running around Almo's E4 events. So Santa Clara, DC in the spring, and then Dallas and Boston in the is that right? Dallas and Boston in the fall. I'll be doing a
this
panel.
fall, you and me, we got to connect.
Yeah, well, we will. And here's the thing, Chris, it'll be the fall, so we can go catch a Bruins game. So
that's right, Bruins all the way.
So yeah, check all that out. And before we know it, it'll be Infocom. So yeah, all that and more at AVNation.tv. That's AVNation.tv. Thank you so much for listening. Thanks so much for watching. That's all the time we have for AV Week.